major political or economic event. Radio Algeria International, our voice in the world.
This is the English service of Radio Algeria International. It's time for the news.
As the Israeli genocide campaign in Gaza continues unabated for the 25th day in a row, the toll has risen to 8,500 dead, while the number of injured has surpassed 21,200. The Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has called on the United Nations actors and international bodies to quickly intervene to stop the genocide committed against the Palestinian civilians. The head of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, has warned that the current system of aid to the Gaza Strip via the Rafah border crossing is doomed to failure, denouncing the bombardment of Gaza and the collective punishment perpetrated by the Israeli apartheid regime. The Speaker of the Council of the Nations, Salah Kuchil, has stressed that Algeria will always be free and constant in its position regarding her unswerving support for just causes, notably the Palestinian cause. And the National People's Assembly has held an extraordinary session in response to the serious developments in occupied Palestine amid the Zionist aggression against the occupied territories. Hello and welcome on Radio Algeria International. I'm Jamal Samani. In today's top story, or as you followed in our top stories, as the Israeli genocide campaign in Gaza continues unabated for the 25th day in a row, the toll has risen to 8,500 dead, while the number of injured has surpassed 21,200. Professor of International Humanitarian Law and member of the Union of Palestinian Attorneys, Hassam Sayyam, said the following in our colleague. And the relentless Israeli genocide campaign continues to bring immense suffering to the civilian population of Gaza. Palestinian families are mourning the loss of their loved ones, and the wounded are being treated on the floors in local hospitals as the medical community struggles to cope with the overwhelming number of casualties. Meanwhile, the Palestinian Ministry of Foreign Affairs has called on the United Nations actors and international bodies to quickly intervene to stop the genocide committed against Palestinian civilians.
The Foreign Ministry stressed in a statement that the absence of an international power that guarantees the enforcement of the law and obligates the perpetrators of crimes to immediately stop committing them would turn the international justice into mere appeals and begging for the executioners. He said the current situation in the Palestinian territories is considered a systematic failure of the international will for peace and the powers of the UN Security Council regarding the protection of civilians wherever they are. The ministry condemned in the strongest terms all forms of incitement practiced by the Israeli occupation state and its various tools that attempt to demonize the Palestinian people and call for revenge without humanitarian or moral limits, any deterrence or conscience, and without giving any consideration of the lives of defenseless Palestinian civilians. It considered this act as an extension of the same colonialist mentality that the Palestinian people, wherever they are, have always suffered from, and which treated them as population groups that have no political, civil, or humanitarian rights. The ministry added that this is the basis on which Israeli colonialism was based, which allowed itself to seize the Palestinian land, then allowed the killing of Palestinians and facilitated the firing regulations for the occupation soldiers and colonists, and gave them the green light to shoot, expel, and displace them. In this line, the ministry confirmed that the slogans and statements of the Israeli occupying authorities, their ruling council, and military staff are nothing more than justifications for killing more civilians and the license to bomb and destroy everything in the Gaza Strip, including a license to bomb hospitals, shelter centers, and schools sheltering the displaced under false pretexts.
Earlier, Palestinian Minister Mohammed Shtayyeh said that the genocide committed against the Palestinian people is beyond description. During the opening of the weekly session of the government meeting in Ramallah, Shtaya said that the massacre perpetrated by the Zionist entity against thousands of children reflects the tragic dimension of this criminal war reached and which must stop immediately. He called for the opening of humanitarian corridors to allow trucks loaded with food, medicine and fuel to Gaza.
The
genocide our people are going through in Gaza is beyond description. The thousands of people that are being killed reveals the despicable extent reached by the ongoing criminal war that should stop immediately. Safe humanitarian corridors should be opened to allow into Gaza the trucks loaded with food, medicine and fuel to bring help to our people in the Gaza Strip, who are surrounded by fire and smoke amidst the cut of electricity and water. It should also be allowed for patients to be treated to save the lives of thousands whose life is in danger. Bring back water and electricity. Stop forceful displacements.
Mohammed Shtaya added that the Palestinian government continues its efforts with various parties to stop the aggression, guarantee the arrival of humanitarian aid, and launch a political process that resolves the root causes of the problem. The head of the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees, UNRWA, has warned that the current system of aid to the Gaza Strip via the Rafah border crossing is doomed to failure, denouncing the bombardment of Gaza and the collective punishment perpetrated by the Israeli apartheid regime. The Commissioner General for the UNRWA, Philippe Lazzarini, called for an immediate humanitarian ceasefire that has become a matter of life and death for millions of people.
Nearly 70% of those reported killed are children and women. Save the Children reported yesterday that nearly 3,200 children were killed in Gaza in just 3 weeks. This surpasses the number of children killed annually across the world's conflict zones since 2019. This cannot be collateral damage. I lost 64 colleagues in just over 3 weeks. The last tragic passing confirmed was 2 hours ago. Samir, head of security and safety in the Middle region, was killed with his wife and 8 children. This is the highest number of UN aid worker killed in a conflict in such a short time. Today, Gazans feel that they are not treated as other civilians. Most of them feel trapped in a war they have nothing to do with. This is dangerous. An entire population is being dehumanized. Every war has rules, and this one is no exception.
A senior UN aid official, Lisa Dufton, has said more than one border crossing was needed to deliver aid to the besieged Gaza Strip, but Karim Shalom, controlled by the Israeli occupation, is the only way equipped, or the only one equipped to take enough trucks.
We're deeply concerned by allegations of military installations in the close vicinity of hospitals and the request by Israeli authorities for hospitals, including Al-Quds and Shifa, to be evacuated. There's nowhere safe for these patients to go. And for those on life support and babies in incubators, moving would almost certainly be a death sentence. We have very real fears about what lies ahead. The current situation may pale in comparison with what is to come. There's a genuine risk that this war could escalate further and spill over into wider region. We must take urgent collective action to prevent this.
For her part, Catherine Russell, Executive Director of the United Nations Children's Fund, UNICEF, stated that children are the most affected by the humanitarian crisis in Gaza. More than 420 children are killed or injured every day in Gaza, Russell emphasized.
UNICEF and our partners are committed to staying on the ground to deliver for children. But make no mistake, the situation grows worse by the hour, and without an urgent end to the hostilities, I am deeply afraid for the fate of the region's children. But we and you have the power to help lift children out of this spiral of violence. I implore the Security Council to immediately adopt a resolution that reminds parties of their obligations under international law, that calls for a ceasefire, that demands the parties allow safe and unimpeded humanitarian access, that demands the immediate and safe release of all abducted children, and that urges parties to afford children the special protection to which they are entitled. On behalf of all the children caught in this nightmare, we call on the world to do better. Whether they are young people attending a music festival or children going about their daily lives in Gaza, they all deserve peace. Children do not start conflicts, and they are powerless to stop them.
In her speech, U.S. Representative to the United Nations Ambassador Linda Thomas-Greenfield expressed regret at the loss of lives, including more than 60 UN staff who have been killed in Gaza since the start of this conflict, saying that the lives of UN personnel must be protected.
The lives of UN personnel must be protected. The lives of humanitarian workers must be protected. The lives of journalists must be protected. The lives of all civilians, innocent civilians, Israeli and Palestinians, men and women, children and elderly, must be protected. There's no hierarchy when it comes to protecting civilian lives. A civilian is a civilian is a civilian.
The representative of the State of Palestine to the UN, Riyad Mansour, reiterated that there is no military solution to this conflict.
We have said time and time again, I repeat, there is no military solution to this conflict. We are yet to demonstrate there is a peaceful one. Prove us wrong. Every minute counts. Every minute is the difference between life and death for Palestinians in Gaza.
Several speakers emphasized the plight of children. On Friday, the UN General Assembly adopted a large majority, a non-binding resolution calling for an immediate humanitarian truce. Meanwhile, four Palestinians were killed due to a massive Zionist army operation in the city of Jenin in the West Bank. The Palestinian Ministry of Health stated that 4 young Palestinians were shot dead, while 6 others were injured during confrontations against units of the Zionist army who stormed the refugee camp of Jenin. Meanwhile, the clashes have caused a major destruction of the refugee camp infrastructure. Now, dozens of fanatic Israeli settlers today broke into the compounds of Al-Aqsa Mosque under heavy protection from the Israeli occupation police. The extremist settlers, divided into groups, raided the Holy Islamic Mosque from the Al-Maghariba Gate and took provocative tours in its compound. It added that the settlers performed Talmudic rituals in the eastern part of the mosque. The Greek Orthodox Patriarchate of Jerusalem today condemned the Israeli military's bombardment of the Orthodox Cultural Center in the Tel Hawa neighborhood of Gaza City earlier today. In a statement, they emphasized that this attack represents a stark embodiment of Israel's unwarranted determination to destroy the civil infrastructure and social service centers, as well as shelters for civilians trapped in the besieged enclave. Now, the Speaker of the Council of the Nation, Salah Goujil, has stressed here in Algiers that Algeria will always be free and constant in its positions regarding her unswerving support for just causes, notably the Palestinian cause. Mariam Bershi has the details in this report.
In his statement at a meeting held by the National School of Administration on the occasion of the 69th anniversary of the November Glorious Revolution, Mr. Goujil said that Algeria has always been free in its decision-making, stressing that it is one of the few countries that proudly defend the Palestinian cause and firmly condemn the crimes committed by the Zionist entity against the Palestinian people. The President of the Council of Nations added that he was highly satisfied by the reforms of the new Algeria, which has made major socio-economic improvements under the guidance of the President of the Republic, Abdelmajid Tebboune, who has also reinforced democracy, rights and liberties. Mr. Goujil has mentioned that a few parties have tried to disturb the state's stability and security, calling on the Algerian people to be united with the President, his institutions, and the national army to counter those who try to harm the country. The Speaker of the Council of Nations seized the opportunity to recall the most important historic step which led to the November Glorious Revolution against the French colonization, which, unlike other occupations, intended to exterminate the Algerian population and replace it by a Christian European population.
The National People's Assembly has held an extraordinary session in response to the serious developments in occupied Palestine amid the Zionist aggression against the occupied territories. In his statement at the opening of the meeting, held in the presence of the Minister of Foreign Affairs and the National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, and other government officials, the Algerian diplomacy chief condemned the brutal Zionist aggression against the Palestinian people and reiterated Algeria's solidarity with the Palestinian people.
Following instructions of the President of the Republic, Algeria has offered solidarity to its Palestinian brothers at two important levels, the humanitarian level and the diplomatic level. At the humanitarian level, Algeria has participated in assisting the Palestinian people in the Gaza Strip by granting them emergency aid that was transferred to Al Arish Airport in Egypt through an airlift of the aircrafts of the Algerian Air Forces.
He also denounced the double standards adopted by some countries and international organizations with regard to the odious crimes committed by the brutal Zionist occupation. You're still listening to Radio Algeria International. The Algiers International Book Fair, SILA, is receiving readers from all over the country for the 7th consecutive day with Africa as guest of honor. The details with Asya Bikar.
Palestine was in the spotlight of this year's edition of the Algiers International Book Fair, SILA, through the organization of several book exhibitions and conferences on Palestinian literature and history, in addition to poetry evenings in solidarity with the Palestinian people, victims of the barbaric attacks of the Zionist occupier. The Ministry of Culture and Arts has dedicated a space to Palestine at its central pavilion, where tons of books on Palestinian history, culture, literature, as well as the struggle of the Palestinian people are exhibited. The books on display cover several themes, mostly linked to the Palestinian cause and revolutionary and literary personalities such as the poet of the Palestinian Revolution, Mahmoud Darwish. There are also photographs of Al-Quds, maps of Palestine, and several paintings illustrating the Palestinian struggle, in addition to photographs of Algerian leaders and writers.
Separately, SILA 2023 has been marked by the participation of the British Council, which seized the fair's opportunity to shed light on its efforts to SILA visitors. The director of the British Council in Algiers, Hamza Kudri, said the following about the British Council's participation.
So the British Council is participating at the SILA Book Fair in Algiers 2023, and chief among our offers is a digital library that's free and accessible to all Algerians, and it really has a really rich list of resources between books that are fiction or non-fiction, short stories and journals and articles and sort of newspapers, but also even music and movies. And so it's a great resource for anybody wanting to learn English or just for entertainment or even academics or teachers to find resources. So I encourage everybody to visit us at the Digital Hub, which is at the G Pavilion, to find out more about the digital library, but also some of our offers that we have around teaching English or taking assessments. So our team will be able to show people how to sign up for the digital library, but also how to benefit from all of our offerings.
Still here in Algeria, the Minister of Foreign Affairs and National Community Abroad, Ahmed Attaf, received the Special Representative of the UN Secretary General and Chief of the United Nations Bureau for West Africa and Sahel, Leonardo Santos Simão, as part of his visit to Algeria. The meeting was an opportunity for the two officials to exchange views on the latest developments in the Sahel region, notably the crisis in Mali and Niger, as well as the perspectives of finding political solutions to these crises. In a statement to the press at the end of the meeting, Mr. Santos Simão stressed that this meeting highlighted the importance of working on finding efficient means to fight against terrorism. He added that it is important to work together to fight against the increasing terrorism scourge in the region, which slows the development of the region states. Mr. Santos Simão emphasized that there is a direct link between poverty and terrorism. Therefore, to tackle terrorism, poverty must be eradicated, stressing that terrorism will not last in our region. Now, in a resolution adopted by a large majority on Monday, the UN Security Council reaffirmed the Sahrawi people's right to self-determination. In a resolution renewing the mandate of the United Nations peacekeeping mission in Western Sahara, MINURSO, for a further year, the Council has called on the parties to the conflict, namely Morocco and the Polisario Front, to resume negotiations under the auspices of the Secretary-General without preconditions and in good faith, with the objective of achieving a last, just and mutually acceptable political solution which will provide for the self-determination of the people of Western Sahara. Speaking to newsmen, the Sahrawi representative to the UN, Mohamed Sidi Omar, had this to say.
The
Polisario Front reiterates its total rejection of the policy of the Moroccan state of occupation that is trying to impose by force on the occupied territories. It also affirms once again the constant and strong determination of the Sahrawi people to continue its struggle with all legal means until it achieves its national aspirations to liberation and independence, and to extend sovereignty over the territories of the Sahrawi Arab Democratic Republic.
Tomorrow, Algeria is celebrating the 1st of November revolution that led to independence from the then French colonial rule. Many sacrificed their lives for the cause. This interview with Professor Abdelaziz Boukena will introduce you to one of the bravest men who fearlessly fought for their land, namely Didouche Morad.
Radio Algeria International presents In Conversation With
Mr. Noordin Brahimi, hello to
Mahatma Gandhi, and you've taken this as a note.
As you know, of the humanity have
and
the achievement.
To talk about the UN's and its agencies' contribution in promoting
In Conversation With.
Hello and welcome to In Conversation With program. I'm Hana Dalil. My guest today is historian Abdelaziz Boukena from the University of Algiers, and we are going to evoke one of the most important figures of the Algerian liberation war and nationalism, that is Didouche Morad. Mr. Abdelaziz Boukena, hello and thank you for joining us.
Well, hello, thank you.
That big hero of the Algerian contemporary history, that is Didouche Morad.
Yes, Didouche Morad, yes. He was Algerian. He was born in July 1927 at Algiers.
Yes.
And in 1942, during the Second World War, he joined voluntarily the Algerian People Party.
Yes.
Yes, then in 1946, he founded a group of scouts. We call it Al-Amal, the dream or the hope.
Yes.
And in 1947, he joined again the underground army organization. We call it Organization Secret Organization.
Yes.
As a young man and very active. And
he had that awareness from a very young age, didn't he?
Yes, he was. He was very young, and he come from a background, family very poor background, let's say middle class background.
He was born here in the center of Algiers, and he was from quite a popular area living, and he saw all that misery the Algerian at that time were suffering from.
Yes, his origin, they come from Kabylia, the mountain,
yes.
yeah.
From the Aghribs region.
Yes, in the great Kabylia.
Yes.
Yes, but he was very poor man, you know.
Yes.
And he was struggling to be educated with the youth of the French, but he couldn't make it because he was very poor.
And the people in Algiers, for example, the Algerian people, suffered a quite big discrimination because they see those European quarters of the city being apart from all those where, as they used to be called, indigenous people living there, and the standards of living were quite so different, so big hiatus between them, aren't they?
Yes, because if they put them in the school, always they are in the back of the class, of the room, not in the front of the room. And yes, it was segregation, let's see, apartheid indeed.
In a way, yes, and in their own land as well.
Yes.
Mr. Boukena, you said that he joined the PPA of Messali al-Hajj, and then his action turned really into politics, didn't it?
Yes, his name came in light in March 1954.
Yes.
Yeah, he met with Ali Mahsas, rahimahullah, at the cafe near the Odeon in Paris.
Yes.
And why we went there, you know, like after broke up of this organization.
Yes.
Yes, and he met in France with Ali Mahsas.
Yes.
Then with Mohamed Boudiaf. He was a deputy of the MTLD, the Party of Mouvement pour le Triomphe de Liberté Démocratique.
Yes.
Yes. Didoush Mourad was back again from France. He came again to Algeria.
Yes.
To organize the party.
Yes.
Then he was back again, this time to Switzerland and France.
Yes.
And in Bern, Swiss territory, he joined the extraordinary meeting with Rabah Bitat, Mohamed Boudiaf, Mohamed Khizer, Karim Belqasem, as we still call them, les Refs historiques.
Yes, the 9 historics
yes,
figures.
He was very active in politics.
Yes.
This nine leader or the Club des Neuf, we add to them, of course, Mustafa bin Boulaid, Mohamed Al-Arabi bin Mehdi, by the way, and Ahmed bin Bella, and Hussein Ait Ahmed, and Didoush Mourad, of course, was the youngest leader. Their age ran between 34, the oldest one, and the youngest, he was Didoush Mourad.
Yes, yes.
And if you want to continue, and the 1st of November 1954.
Yes. He took part in the meeting of the 22.
Yes. As the 1st November come closer and closer, Didoush Mourad's first was among the 22 Algerian men.
Yes.
When they met in Cross Salambi, now we call it Didoush Mourad, and we are proud to call it Didoush Mourad.
Yes, here it's here, not far from the Algerian radio headquarters.
Yes,
here in Upper Algiers.
In the height of the vehicle, or we was dead.
Yes.
And before the war broke out, we see him, Didoush Mourad, in the photo of the sixth leader, with his tiny mustache.
Yes.
Which they had took this photo at Bab el Wad. Why we mention this photo? Because this photo had become a historic document indeed. Historical document indeed, and had left, never come into the hand of the French police. Never.
Yes. He was a very smart man, wasn't he?
Yes, he was very smart man with his
very sharp intelligence.
Yes,
many historians and one of his brother-in-arms said that he had that sharp intelligence.
Yes, he was indeed, yes. And Didoush Mourad Hana was at the hand, in the eve of the 1st November, was put at the head of the Zone 2, we call it Zone, the second zone.
Second zone, or Wilaya 2, yes.
Become Wilaya afterward, after 19, become the Wilaya in the north of Constantine.
Yes.
Constantine.
Yes.
And when Algeria was divided the other time, we know that 5 zone, or 5 Wilaya.
Yes.
And become the event in 18, as I said in the beginning, in the 18th of January 1955, was killed, rahimahullah, at the age of 28-year-old.
Yes, he was very young. He was at that time, yes. And shall we mention also that he was among the writers of the declaration of the 1st November 1954, a declaration that led to the burst of the Algerian Revolution?
Yes, thank you very much. He had mentioned that he was among the writer of this document of the declaration of the war.
Yes. Mr. Abdelaziz Boukina, what can we say to the younger generations? What shall we remember in particular about this great figure of the Algerian contemporary history?
Yes, before we end, Hannah, he died at the hand of the paratroop of the General de Cornu.
Yes.
And the Wilaya 2, or the second Wilaya, had come under the command of the Zirut Yusuf and his right hand, Lakhdar bin Toubal.
Yes.
You know, Hannah, both had been very keen, I see it, very keen and very deeply attached to the spirit of Didoush Mourad. Both of them. That's the history was said. Both they are very deeply attached to the spirit of Didoush Mourad. What he said, our generation now, these were the martyrs of our revolution. And he was very strong and ideal. He fought for his struggle. He see his country, he want to see his country free and independent. And Hannah, now Didoush Mourad, he was very young and brave man.
Yes.
And one now, all of us, we still walk, particularly in this typically days of weather, which we like it very, very much. I like the snow.
Yes.
In this long street of the center of Algeria, Algiers.
Yes.
And his name is scapegoat or graved in our memory. And we are proud indeed, for our generation, when they cross this long street until Ben Mehdi and just raise their hand, and they see this this man, he died at the age of very, very young.
Yes, for the ideal of seeing again his homeland free from the yoke of colonialism.
Yes.
Historian Abdelaziz Boukina, thank you very much indeed for all those informations on this big national figure of the Algerian contemporary history that was Didouche Mourad. Thank you very much indeed.
Thanks.